Hello and welcome to the Two Dyspraxics, episode 9. I'm Matthew Munson,
And I'm Barbara Neal.
and today we could be talking about dyspraxia and milestones, kind of age-related, etc., etc. So I thought you opened your mouth. I thought you were going to say something. So that's why I looked at you.
No,
Sorry.
no.
Okay. We've started well. So kind of there's a lot about milestones that kind of non-dyspraxic people have at an expected time in their lives. One Barbara used
Learning to walk.
Learn to walk.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember this, obviously, because I was 2 years old, but I know that I was a very early talker. Some people might not be surprised to hear that. But I was spouting quite long sentences when I was very little, and therefore, I know my dad used to show me off, to heard about that, and he'd say, Barbara, do say this, say that. So I think it must have come as a shock when I was very slow learning to walk. I was about 2, and I still was struggling a bit. So
I think
yes.
I was sorry. Cause I remember my parents saying to me, same as Barbara. Clearly, I don't remember it. But I went straight from sitting to walking with no kind of crawling stage in between. So my parents tell me. I have no reason to disbelieve them. So I think I was about 14 or 15 months. I think, if I'm right, something like that. Where I was literally just. It was awful. It was the family home we used to live at the time. My mum had sat me on the landing at the top of the stairs while she was putting some washing away in the airing cupboard, and all of a sudden I got up and started walking towards the stairs. My mother, as you can imagine, had a bit of a heart attack because I showed no inclination to walking before, and she just caught me before I tried to launch myself bodily down the stairs of our old family home. But yeah, I'd gone straight from nothing to it was all or nothing for me at the time.
Yes, interesting. I don't know whether that was the case for me. I don't think so. But I know I was slow learning to walk, and which I think must have disappointed my parents somewhat because I was such an
advanced kind of language. Yeah. Well,
So-
one thing that was funny to me, I remember when I was a big kind of thing was climbing stairs. When I was a kid, first years of my life, the stairs at the old terrace house we used to live at were very narrow, and trying to kind of go down these stairs with any kind of semblance of balance was awful. Where kids my age were kind of just running up and down stairs and doing whatever, and all my cousins were. I was quite slow at that, and as a picture of me, I must be a lot older. What? That's bad English. Older. Can't be any older. Dad, you're watching this. Sorry. I can't be any older than possibly 3.5 or 4. And I fell quite spectacularly down the stairs that old time. I can vaguely remember it, and my face was very bruised, and I didn't break anything, but I was quite badly kind of bruised, and it clearly hurt the video when it happened. But my coordination was comparatively quite slow compared to my peers at the time, and I was about 3-4 years old.
I think stairs are notoriously difficult, aren't they, for the likes of us? And I have to confess that even in adulthood, I've been known to just climb the stairs on all fours because it's easier. When I get really tired, and so that's something I do very often.
A story Barbara was relating in the previous vlog actually about stairs is how we adapt to it, and Barbara and I were at a conference. A little while ago now. We're in 2013 as we record this, and it was this year, and we were walking down some stairs, and I had hold of the handrail, and Barbara was next to me. It was a very wide staircase, and I had hold of the stairrail, so I was quite confident walking down the stairs because I was stable. But Barbara was in the middle of the stairs.
So no handrail, no safety net or anything.
Nothing. And so I was because I think we grew up in a non-dyspraxic world, and that's a different vlog, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent, I promise. But because we were so used to it, I got a handrail, and I was talking to Barbara about something, and I thought, Barbara heard me, so I said it again. It wasn't until I got to the bottom I thought, oh, because I held a handrail, I was fine, and I was comparatively confident because I felt safe. Of course, Barbara didn't have that safety net.
No.
So, and if it was vice versa, I just felt exactly the same as Barbara. So I'm not saying it's just her, but it is the dyspraxia. It's something that's not something you grow out of, really, is it?
No.
You sometimes, even when you're older, that whole balance and the coordination thing is still there. You just perhaps don't mind. You mind less if you look a bit of a fool. When you're older.
I don't mind that at all.
No,
Nowadays,
no, I have no
used
problem
to
with
mind a lot when I think sort of going on to I don't want to keep going on and on about school, but I think
it's a big part.
I mean, you get to about 4 or 5, start school, and that's when the big problems begin, because everybody then is aware that that they can do things and they can accept.
I
was the only one.
Being at school is a big part of it. Is acceptance, isn't it? It's to seem. I'm going to use that word again, Barbara. Normal. It's you. When you're at school, a lot of the time you want to just seem normal. You want to seem the same as everyone else, and actually you probably you think actually that's boring. I don't want to be the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
However, it's a big deal at school, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I think there are two ways I can think of dealing with it. One which my son, who is dyspraxic, sorry Rob, I know he doesn't like me, or rather he doesn't disclose it. He never talks about it, so I should respect that. Well, I do respect it in him, but he deals with it in a totally different way from me, which is why I brought it up in the first place. He's very much like a bull in a china shop, and certainly as the mother of a dyspraxic son, when he was at school, oh dear me, I lost count of the number of times I would get a phone call from school. Rob's fallen down and bumped his head, so we'd have to go up to A&E, usually on stairs, I have to say, but or if someone talked to him and he was busy concentrating on the walking down the stairs or something like that, and then tried to hold a conversation at the same time, just couldn't do it. But he would just barge in, and he's broken lots of bones and had lots of accidents, and it's been a bit of a nightmare from the parents' point of view. But the way I've always handled it, certainly from when I was a child, is to just withdraw, because if I leap in, and I'm afraid of leaping in and hurting myself, leaping in and making a fool of myself, so I will just withdraw and try to avoid those uncomfortable situations as much as possible.
And then also miss out on opportunities because of being afraid of what might happen or how I might look as a result of doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. So the confidence takes a massive knock.
Oh, hugely so. The amount of school trips I wouldn't go on because I was afraid of the situation or making a prat of myself or whatever. Yeah, totally. One thing we were going to say, Barbara, and just something that occurred to me while I think about it, about like the auditory side, the auditory processing side, kind of like, as we grow. I think that's something we need to touch on.
Yeah.
Funny thing, it's something neither of Barbara and I were actually. This is what I'm saying. That neither of us were aware of this. How it affects us until recently. Previous vlog, we mentioned about a good friend of ours called Tom, fellow dyspraxic, who we went to London with, and it's funny, he noticed this on 2 separate occasions. Tom and I were calling Barbara, who was a distance away, and on another occasion, Barbara and Tom were calling me, and I was a distance ahead. And on both occasions, Barbara first and I were basically kind of looking back, rather than going straight to the source of the noise. We were looking everywhere, kind of but the source of the noise. And even after we got closer, or Barbara got close to me, or vice versa, it still took us a moment to actually decipher where the noise was coming from.
Yeah. The noise being the
person's voice. Being Tom and I, or Tom and Barbara calling. That's what we were looking for. We could hear it, we just couldn't place it.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I must have been doing that all my life.
Likewise,
I just never noticed it. Even though Tom hadn't mentioned it in his blog,
and he also noticed that when we were calling him, we said that.
That's what.
But for each of the three of us,
for him as well.
All in that situation at some point during that day, and Tom picked up on that.
Yeah,
and noticed that we all.
But isn't that interesting
though? Identify where the sound was
coming. That we had this diagnosis of dyspraxia, and we've kind of lived with that our lives, and we kind of know the big pressure points, and yet still, at the age of 31 and blah, blah, blah,
58. I'm not shy about my age.
No, I thought I'd better just go over just in case, but
thank you.
31 and 58. We're still learning. Actually, there's still things that we can attribute to our auditory that we don't even know about.
Yeah, and with that particular example, the auditory processing, when we were at the conference that Matthew was talking about earlier with the stairs, when I couldn't talk to him because I was on the stairs.
The stairs conference, I think it'll be forever known as now, isn't it?
But
it wasn't a conference about stairs.
But I was, I can't remember. She didn't call me by name or anything, but
no, because you've gone to the bar, haven't you?
I've gone to the bar, not for an alcoholic drink.
This was 9 o'clock in the morning, I have to say.
For a cup of coffee or something, I think. But I went to the bar, and I was standing and chatting with someone else who was there, and I heard, excuse me, and I was looking around and looking behind me and looking everywhere, but it was the woman behind the bar, so I completely missed that I knew she was talking to me. You know how you sort of get that sixth sense about when someone's talking to you, but I just couldn't locate where her voice was coming from.
And it was weird that we didn't realise it. That we probably lived with this all our lives, and yet we didn't pick up on that.
Just haven't noticed it.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing actually. That as adults with dyspraxia, the learning kind of doesn't just stop because we've reached adulthood and we're more I mean, I'd say both as Barbara, we're both more confident than probably ever. I mean, for me, hitting my late 20s was the point where I felt I started to develop my confidence a lot more. And I know, Barbara, you've said as an adult you've kind of felt more confident.
Certainly.
But that doesn't mean that our learning doesn't stop with dyspraxia. We always kind of find something kind of new. Oh, actually, is that dyspraxic? Is that, how can we deal with that?
Yeah.
But I think the difference, certainly for me, dealing with dyspraxia as an adult as opposed to as a child, is the fact that, you know what, I don't care.
Exactly. That's
I can laugh it off.
That's really important though, to say that the learning doesn't stop, because it's this thing about dyspraxic children do tend to grow into dyspraxic adults. And so it's constantly with us, it's constantly changing in some respects as we discover more about it, and also respond in different ways, because I've found that as I get older I get more tired, because the normal, there's that word again, everyday things that we do take that much longer, take that much more effort.
Yes.
And
effort is a big part of it, isn't it?
Most definitely. And where some years ago I would put, if I was sort of planning to go somewhere or do something, I would have to plan it, sometimes a couple of days worth of planning into an evening, you know, depending on what I was doing. So, and that's very tiring. And
then when you get to the evening, you'd be exhausted in half an hour to get there, because you've got so, I mean, and for me, anxiety was a big thing, which I think we can come back to in a sec, but definitely. I get so anxious about it, I'd plan to the nth degree every step of the way, that by the time I arrived at the said event, which could be a few hours long, I'll be exhausted in 10 minutes, thinking, I just want to go home, and no one can understand. It was perhaps 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's still early, and I'm a night owl. Why are you so tired at 8 o'clock in the evening? Well, because I haven't seen the last 2 days worth of planning.
All the effort that's gone into that particular outing. And something that we used to do when my two older sons were younger, we used to go to France quite often, and it was a fairly remote village in the southwest of France. So if you can imagine, things like making sure I've got everything in the car I needed, all the legal requirements. And sometimes we used to go for a month. We had a friend down there who we used to go and stay with, and so all the planning, make sure I've got everything the boys will need for a month, got everything I need for a month, and then we've got to work out the route. So I'd have to have everything written down. And I had to try and imagine every possible eventuality so I could prepare for it. So that was really exhausting. I honestly don't believe I could do that now, because I find as I'm getting older, because planning and planning, which doesn't come easily to us anyway, is something that we have to do for something that to a lot of people would be quite mundane. I think if you call that a double-edged sword, it's about we're not good at planning, but we have to plan. On the other side of the coin. Exactly. No, that's a very valid point, because that's exactly the way it is. But I found that I'm doing less planning now because it's just too tiring. And the older I get, the more tired I become, because I'm having to put so much extra effort into doing just ordinary things. So, I mean, something which is probably fairly minor, I suppose, but slamming doors, cupboard doors in the kitchen, that's something I never really used to do, because I would close the door really gently. It's difficult to judge how much force I need to close the doors. I think on one memorable occasion I actually managed to break a door in the kitchen because I misjudged how much force I would need. Slammed the door closed and cracked part of the wood in the door, as an example. Very easily done. Very easily done. I used to do the exact opposite and just close it really gently, and now sometimes I'm just too knackered to do that, frankly, because of all the other things. I mean, that's just a tiny thing that takes that much extra effort, but everything that you do throughout the day takes that much extra effort. But it's interesting that somehow some people then might think that our dyspraxia becomes more pronounced when we get older. Yes. But actually, it's not. It's just that the mechanisms we're used to using to mask our dyspraxia, because it's about coping strategies to kind of fit into normal society. I hate that word and I've used it far too much today. But the coping mechanisms we're using to fit into neurotypical society
are either for whatever reason not working because the situation has changed, or we're too exhausted, or we're just too old to think, do you know what, I just don't care about that anymore, or whatever. So people might see a marked difference in our visible dyspraxia and think our dyspraxia's got worse. Well, actually, it's probably just the same, but the coping strategies have either just stopped working, or it's become too much hard work.
I think it's
in a way.
Certainly, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I do feel fairly qualified to talk about dyspraxia and ageing now, and but certainly in my case, it's just too tiring. And so I find sometimes there might be something I really want to do, but I have to just draw the line. I can't do as much as I wanted to, as much as I used to, rather. When it's something I want to do, I still have to draw the line and say, I've got to I can't do that tonight because I'm just too worn out from doing, just the normal everyday things, never mind working and.
If I may just touch on that, Bob, linking into what you've just said about kind of anxiety, what we were talking about earlier, because I don't know about you, it's something, it may just be me, so excuse us while we have a brief discussion about this. I will come back to you. For me, I've always felt that my anxiety levels perhaps were, even now I'm happy to admit as a 31-year-old, were perhaps exemplified by having dyspraxia, because I was nervous about all the other things that could go wrong. Because I've got so used to planning and having control over every part of, or planning for every part of the evening, I get very nervous about actually, well, what could go wrong, and if I can't then plan for something, because either I don't know what's going to happen, or it's a last minute thing, or it's a surprise. Okay, if you just heard that sound, that was actually my antivirus software on my computer updating. We're not going to stop now because we're 16 minutes in. So apologies.
Absolutely.
So that you'll know, I have a vast antivirus software, so I just want to share that with you also. Apologies for the noise.
Does it keep you safe from the flu?
Apparently so.
Good.
Not bird flu apparently, but that's another story. Sorry about that, slight digression. Anxiety. So if you can't plan for something, or or whilst you're planning for it, you're going over it in your head, often several times, and trying to prepare for it, the anxiety levels do rise something chronic. And I've used this example previously, and I don't apologise for using it again. I'm doing a BSL refresher course at the moment, and I went on to my second class fairly recently from the date we recorded this. If you're watching it in 2015, it was a few years ago, but that's another story. And it was my second class, so you would think I'd actually be more relaxed in my second class. But no, it was the opposite. 'Cause in my first class, I came in halfway through the year, so I was met by the teacher at reception, and I was walked around, shown the way to go, introduced to my classmates who had been there for a while, was kind of given a bit of a soft landing into it. It was fairly easy. So on the second lesson, I had to remember not only where I was going, not only the route to take to the classroom, I had to remember to leave work on time to get to the school where I was having the lessons. I had to remember people's names, which I didn't do too well at. I had to remember the teacher's learning style, what he'd asked me to do the previous week, and all this kind of stuff that I had to absorb. And as I was walking to the school, my anxiety levels were really rising, because I thought, I can't remember all this. I'm going to forget something, or I'm going to make myself look an idiot, or I'm going to go to the wrong place, or I'm going to forget something, or whatever. And as it turned out, I hadn't. I got there and it was fine, but I felt so nervous.
Well, that actually, I mean, much as I hate to plug, but I suppose probably most people know by now I'm a hypnotherapist, and I specialise in helping people who have dyspraxia for two reasons. Firstly, because I have a pretty good understanding of it, being dyspraxic myself, but also because it can really help to reduce the anxiety, because I think most of the problems that we have are based on anxiety, to be honest with you. And I mean, things like when I was a teenager, I mean, to go back to talking about sort of chronology and things, but when I was a teenager, I used to be extremely self-conscious, and I used to think that everybody was watching me and thought I ate in a weird way, because I would struggle with the act of cutting up food with a knife and fork and then getting the food into my mouth on the fork, and that was so hard to do, and I was so aware, especially if I was in a public setting, of other people and what they would think. I mean, they probably didn't notice anyway, to be truthful about it, but I used to get really anxious about it, and because I was so anxious, it would make it more difficult to do. It's far more difficult to do something like that than it is if you're just relaxed and then just do it.
Well, what's lovely is actually Barbara and I have been out for a few meals together on different occasions. often in groups and stuff for my book launch. See, I did well.
Plug.
You plug. Barbara came for my book launch a couple of years ago, and we had a meal, and it was actually, we didn't sit next to each other, but it was just lovely knowing that at the same table there was someone who had exactly the same issues eating food as me, and even that knowledge made me so much more relaxed with my food.
Good.
It was because I just knew, oh, do you know what? If anyone thinks I'm a bit odd, well, Bubba's on the table, and we're probably doing exactly the same thing. Not that I'm saying anyone did think it's odd; they probably didn't even notice. However, it relaxed me more knowing that actually it wasn't just me. You know.
But also, that's I mean, there are the two sort of classic ways of approaching eating. If that's something, I mean, I think some of the dyspraxic people I've spoken to within my work as a hypnotherapist, it seems that there are a lot of people who don't get concerned about eating food. It doesn't affect everybody, but something I've noticed is that you can either, one way of approaching it is just making a mess and not caring, basically. The other way of approaching it is to just slow everything right down so that you're eating at your pace and not the pace that you're expected to eat. So, I mean, that takes me back to school days again, where everybody
Absolutely.
else had left and chairs were up on tables, and I was still sitting there eating. Oh dear, excruciating stuff.
Bad memories sometimes, but that's the beauty of being an adult, I guess. It kind of, as I said before, the stuff that bothered you as a kid, although the dyspraxia doesn't change and it's constant, you learn to care less about it. Which is a nice feeling sometimes.
I think actually something you said earlier about when we were talking about growing older and how it's the coping strategies that may have changed rather than we haven't actually got worse. It may seem as though the dyspraxia has got worse, but that's not the case. It's the way that we just don't have as much energy to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So I think that can have the opposite effect as well when you think about this obsession with clumsy child syndrome. Does your child have dyspraxia? Because we get good at coping with it, so we hide it so well when we reach adulthood. So it just reverts.
Absolutely, it doesn't get cured. We just in our kind of, as it were, prime. Forgive me, Bob. That's not how I'm trying to say that. I don't mean you're. Anyway, I'm digging myself into a hole there.
Your head.
Yeah, I wasn't insinuating anything, I promise. You kind of, perhaps from 20s to 45 or whatever, you have enough energy to sustain the coping mechanisms. But and I fully accept I'm 31, and there'll come a time when I will mirror you. And there were days when I feel like that, and we talk about having dyspraxic days when dyspraxia is more powerful somehow, and it's difficult. I can't describe that. And that's possibly. I'm conscious of the time, and that's possibly one for another vlog. But you can have days where the dyspraxia feels more powerful or has more hold over you in a way, and it may sound odd, but we can touch on that later. And actually, then your coping mechanisms don't always work because you have to put extra effort into it. And even me as kind of 31 who has reasonable amounts of energy, you think sometimes, I can't do it today, and so I will seem extra clumsy, and people think, what the hell's wrong with me? It's not normally that clumsy. Well, no, because normally I can hide it, but today I just can't, or whatever day.
Something that does bother me rather is the thought of getting much older and having all sorts of other problems that come with age, and having things written off as, it's just because she's old, without having the understanding of, well, actually I'm dyspraxic, so this bit is due to my dyspraxia. And that's something that concerns me about elderly people who have dyspraxia.
And I think that's down to good dyspraxia awareness.
Definitely.
Which is where the two dyspraxics come in.
Yes.
That's what I say. But we're doing. Watch out for a town near you. We're coming to find you. And we're going to educate your towns and communities.
Actually, that's a very important point, because if you happen to know, I'm addressing other people who have dyspraxia here particularly, but if you happen to know of anywhere that really needs some dyspraxia awareness training, do get in contact, because it's something that we do.
Absolutely.
And so far we've had some very, very good feedback from, particularly East Cape College.
Absolutely. And, that's the one you delivered solo, wasn't it? That one.
But we can come and put them straight.
Absolutely. We can educate them. Well, I'm conscious Barbara, 24 minutes we've been chatting.
I know.
Crikey.
We go on.
Well, so much to talk about. Right, shall we leave it there? And we're going to leave it there. Right, thank you for your time today. Thank you for watching episode 9. It is episode 9, Barbara, isn't it? We said.
I believe it is.
So it's 25 minutes ago. Short-term memory problem. It's a dyspraxic
Yeah.
thing. So thank you for watching, and we will catch up with you again soon. Bye for now.
Absolutely. Bye bye.